People, and welcome to a very, very special broadcast. It is 4 days before Christmas as this live stream is going on. It is December 21st, Saturday, and everybody should be home watching this because you're not going to want to miss this broadcast. This is a very, very special broadcast. In fact, I would dare to say it's actually momentous because everything we do on this broadcast is momentous as longtime viewers of um, the Steve Rude podcast have already noted with great glee, and enthusiasm too. Don't forget that. So, a couple things I want to bring up before we introduce our mystery guest here. One is we have a 2025 sketchbook coming out. You know, we do these every year, right? And it's coming out in January, so don't miss it. There's that link below thing that everyone knows about except me. And so look into that if you want to help us out. Also, the Steve Rude fund for his art supplies is still well underway. Um, so if there's any philanthropic, whatever, really rich billionaires out there who want to contribute to the cause of a very special, very, very special thing to me, then I urge you to contribute. Um, so today is going to be, like I said, very special. First thing I want to do is introduce you to a friend of mine. This is my new sketchbook right here. These guys have been my friends for a long time. This is log number 40, Christmas 19, or I'm stuck in the past, 2024. This is a hardcover. It was given to me by a pop singer named Katie Turnbridge, and so the book is dedicated to her. And there's the first inside page and the first page right there that I've already done. Everyone knows Alice. So I'm on this big animation kick right now. So that's why you see what you see here. The special guest that we have today has been a critical part of my life since the very beginning. And we met in 1978. We met at the steps of the Memorial Union in Madison, Wisconsin, on a very sunny day, I believe in August. And it was a very brief meeting. I showed him what I did. He showed me what he did, and we were underway. Our first actual official project together was something called Encyclopedias, which was later reprinted in Pacific Comics years later, after they thought they could make money off us. We were currently working at Capital Comics, debuting something that the world had heretofore been not used to, that had been very um, um, unacclimated for, and that is comic books being produced in places other than the two coasts, specifically New York and LA. So along came us, and I like to think that we rocked the boat a little bit and are still rocking the boat because we're still rockers. So at this point, I'd like to introduce my longtime friend and writing partner, and just plain friend, Mr. Mighty Mike Barron.
Hey all.
So yeah, a man of few words. I'm a man of many words. So the two of us are going to chat about just whatever comes to our mind. Um, Now, dude, one of the things we've always done together, I've always called him dude, he calls me dude, is we've always exchanged presents at our birthdays, which comes every 5 years, and at Christmas, which is coming up right here. Now, we don't know what we got each other yet, do we?
What? You mean I opened too soon?
Oh, Baron opened it too soon. Let the record show that the dude here has not opened his too soon.
Oh,
So,
great.
currently, you were as busy as we've discussed over the phone many times, because we're in touch at least a couple times a week, more busy than ever doing your writing,
Yeah,
and you're
it's a
being
funny
very, very
thing.
successful at it. So feel free to pipe in about that because I know people are going to want to hear about that.
Well, most of you know I'm writing for the Rippaverse. My first book, Gooding, came out. I have a couple more books in the works, but not for a while. In the meantime, I'm writing a series of thrillers with Blaine Lee Pardo. Blaine is a New York Times best-selling author who contacted me out of the blue and said, Mike, I think we should work together. Uh, and Blaine is forcing me to write faster than I ever have because Blaine writes like 8 books a year or something. But anyhow, he had this plan for a book called Tenure. It's about a history professor at a university in Portland, where else, who refuses to use a student's preferred pronoun and how it destroys his life. First, they fire him, and then Antifa runs his wife off the road, and she dies in a fiery wreck. And then Antifa swats his house, and the police shoot his daughter as she's reaching for her cell phone. And finally, he hits rock bottom. He has nothing left. And at that point, he turns into Charles Bronson and says, well, these people got to pay. So it's a vigilante story, but it's a vigilante with a twist. And the twist is evident in the tagline, cancel culture is canceled.
Yeah, and we've always been big in that vigilante thing. I'm such a fan of humanity, and I know you are too. We just love what we see every day in the world, and so Nexus was born out of that. And do you remember the original name that you were gonna call him back in 1980 before we actually launched the book?
No,
See, this is where my memory comes in here, and it's pretty astute. We all know that I'm losing my memory by the minute here, but when it comes to long term, no problemo. So you were going to call him the Executioner before you thought up the name Nexus.
huh, it's a good thing I didn't use that name.
Yeah, it's a little hackneyed. I remember we were looking at I think there were books called The Executioner. Were
Yeah,
there? They were
Don
like
Pendleton.
got it. Yeah, those are the books I remember being over at your pad when you would come and collect me from my pad on campus. So over to your place, like about 35 minutes away from there, and then we'd get in and huddle in your apartment and just brainstorm. I remember bringing a lot of tracing paper along as we worked out costumes for Nexus, and I remember the two things you were real big on was the lightning bolt and the goggles, the red crimson goggles that you wore, which of course
That's
is
right.
on the tip of your memory, right?
Right. Well, you see, the viewers are now seeing my dog Mac.
Oh, the blowhard. Okay,
All right. That's
yeah,
enough.
we're both
That's
big on
enough.
blowhards. Um, and then so in the summertime we get together. In the wintertime, I'd have to bring my thermal boots along. And you remember the night I stayed over because it was getting late, right? And I had to bundle up in about 4 layers of thermal blankets. Yes, he does remember that. Okay, so some things he did not forget.
What's your
I
name
also
again?
remember, yeah, right. So I also remember you giving me the my Loomis book, the second Loomis book that I bought,
That's right.
and it might have been the first. So you remember that, huh? It
Yep.
was figure drawing for all it's worth. If anyone doesn't know about the Loomis books by now, then I failed in my mission because I've been talking about him ever since we introduced Nexus when it came out in 1981. So yeah, I remember Dave was one of your first creations, and so was Sunderpeel, but we didn't have a name for Sunderpeel. You had her first name, Sundra, which is the most unique name I've ever heard. Um, but you remember the last name you wanted to call her?
No.
Okay, you wanted to call her Sundra Leach.
Ah, that's right.
Uh-huh.
That was not a good name.
So I said, we might want to rethink that. And then you suddenly came up with Peel because we both grew up with the British show The Avengers, which had Emma Peel,
Yeah.
and that's where that name came from with a little different spelling. So it's been Sundra Peel ever since, and we call her Sunny Honey and all sorts of names that are beloved to our favorite blonde. Did I make her blonde, or was that you? I've always been big on my blondes. You know that.
Well, I didn't think I was picky about her hair color, so it must have been you.
Yeah. Okay. So it was me. I confess. Um, and there came a day which I remember well, which I'll refresh you in case you don't. But I think it was like a year later, maybe possibly a year later in 1980, where we didn't officially have a name for Nexus. And you called me up on the phone. You remember this moment here at all?
Hell no.
Okay. You called me up when we still use real phones, and you said one word over the phone, Nexus.
Now I remember.
Okay, and I said that's it. It was the perfect name. I didn't know what it meant at the time. You obviously did because you're much more literate than I am, still are. And from there, everything was born. We accumulated some people that were doing editorial work for us and publishers that we already had intact. Uh, Milton Creep and John Davis. Then along came Rich Bruning, who acted as our official editor. And from there, the operation grew to having an official colorist, Leo Dorscheid, and a couple of assistants. One was Karen Price,
It was
and she was.
Les Dorscheid.
Um, I thought it was Leo all this time. I renamed him, and I remember that Corinne was a hot little number. She was such a pretty little blonde girl, and she was responsible for yelling at me every time I did something wrong. So that was probably a good thing we had her. Um, at one time, when we recruited Jeff Butler to draw the Badger, um, I apparently kept turning in pages that were lopsided. And even though I had all the right triangles and all the T squares and all this crap, I still couldn't seem to manage a perfect square. So
That's
they
right.
made some, yeah, you remember that now. So what they did is they made, Corinne made something for me called the Butler box. Any recognition there? No.
The Butler box.
Yeah. You remember the Butler box? Of course, you weren't drawing, you were just writing, but I was. They actually took some mat board and cut out a perfect size 10 by 15 area for me to draw my pages in. Uh, I I still think I found a way to screw it up though. So determined was I.
It's another thing that you did that most people don't do today is you would do thumbnails right in the margins of my script.
Yeah. So back then, Mike would do a practice that came natural for him, and you can tell us in a second where that might have come from, if indeed it
Yeah, I
did.
would draw
Because
each script out by hand. And in fact, I just discovered these the other day. This is from a Bruce Lee story I wrote. It was published by Malibu, and that's what the pages look like.
oh, that was way later on. You were always doing the drawings,
Yeah,
your drawings
yeah,
for
because I,
me
you
for
know,
the
I
script.
unfortunately I sold or gave away all my original Nexus scripts,
Well, I
except
still
for
have a lot of them, and I still
oh,
have
you
scripts
do.
that we never did. Yeah, one was the time when oh, what was that? Was I supposed to be getting married or something? And
You
then
mean the ones I drew out by hand?
oh yeah, yeah. In fact, there's one story that Roger Sallet did about time to make up your mind, kind of a thing. And yeah, it was hilarious. But most of the time when you here's the way it would work back in the early days, which for me were just stellar days and a stellar decade, which was the 1980s. Anyone who missed out on the 1980s has no idea what you're missing for. Life was a lot simpler, a lot plainer, and things made sense. So what would happen is Mike would drive down in his little Winnebago thing, or your little bug. Yeah, your little bug, and it probably honked the whole way down there, like you always do when I was driving with you. And you come up to the pad and you drop off the script. And that was standard procedure for at least 10 years. And you'd hand it off, I'd look at it, I'd almost always start laughing at something that was funny in there and point out things. And I remember I always wanted to go over the script with a fine tooth. And you were done with a thing by then, moving on to something else. And I did my best to drive you crazy, asking little tiny questions about motivation and all that kind of stuff, or what's going on in this panel and what look should she have and all that stuff. So it was a very close collaboration.
Are you growing a
Now,
mustache?
the dude?
You.
No, No, I didn't shave
Plus, I
today,
gotta
but
say, from the shadows, it looks good on you.
oh well, thanks, man. You might be mistaking me for Mr. Silly here. He's got a full beard and mustache. Mr. Silly being our firstborn, Super Little Keed being our secondborn, who mans the camera here, whom I refer to as Mr. Producer. Bad pronoun. So, tell us what you remember about those days, because they were very special to me. Those 1980s when everything was so tight and the comic industry was flourishing and doing incredibly creative things. And it was kind of like a renaissance going on in that entire decade. So, what do you remember about those days when you would, just in general, either dropping off scripts to me or just the whole atmosphere
It was
from the earliest
exciting.
days on?
I would get up in the morning and I would sit down at my desk. I'd take a legal pad, draw out a page, and uh, I would think about the story. And, I was making it up on the fly back then. I didn't outline or anything. I would get an idea for a story, and then I would just envision the first panel and ask myself, what's compelling? What's going to interest the reader? Uh, and then when I put that down, then I would think about the next panel. Uh, and I can't stress this too much. If you want to do comics, whether you can draw or not, if you do what I did and draw each page out by hand, you will learn so much. You will learn how much weight a page can take. And by that, I mean, how many panels can you put on a page? How many words? So that it remains comfortable and readable. Uh, but most importantly, it forced me to think about what happens next, which is the most important question in fiction. Because if the reader doesn't care, he's not going to turn the page. And by forcing me to think what happens next and moving from panel to panel like an inchworm, I put something of significance in every panel. I don't think there was any wasted space in any of those books. Now there was a lot of humor. There were places where it opened up, and we take time out for comedy, like with Clone Zone or with Nexus himself. But then it would tighten up the tension when Nexus got to where he was going. Usually he was going to assassinate some mass murderer because that was the theme of the book, that he would dream about mass murderers and the dreams would nearly kill him. And when he woke up, he understood that he had to remove the source of the dreams or the dreams would recur until they did kill him.
Right, and that was the gimmick that you thought up originally to make it different from all the superhero books. You literally described it as his life would be in danger if he didn't obey the mandate of the missions.
We are being
Correct.
infested with fruit flies. It has nothing to do with
Expand
anything.
on
So
that
the
though.
fruit flies are flying around my desk right now.
Blast them.
But yeah, I mean, and you were turning out genius work, and everybody loved it. I mean, that put us on the map. You have one chance to make a first impression, and we did a good job because it's still going strong today. People love the book, whether it's Dude's version or my version, and we plan to continue into the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and that's what I learned from you about any sense of writing is, and I can't believe how many people don't understand this. I see movies that are so disjointed I can't follow them and therefore don't care. I tend to like movies that start off um, getting to know people first. That isn't always the case. There's always ways to rearrange things and make it work. There's no such thing as a limited imagination, and there's no such thing as is messing with the so-called formula. But the the idea that you couldn't get somebody to turn the page is the only real no-no that you can ever be accused of in writing or drawing comics.
That's right. Uh, and I have a few peculiarities. Is one is I hate to waste a single page on a single image. I will every now and then when it has impact. And one of the pages I remember most fondly was when Judas showed up with his head missing. And that was a full page spread, and it was at the end of the story, and it was a terrific cliffhanger. But mostly when I'm reading other people's comics and they devote a full page to a werewolf, for example, you stop there and you admire the werewolf. It's a beautifully drawn werewolf. but the story doesn't continue. So I would tend to devote the top 2/3 of the page to the image, and then the bottom third where the story picks up a little and says, and this happens next, to get the reader to turn the page. As for explosions, if you've seen one explosion, you've seen them all. I would never devote a full page to an explosion, maybe a half page if it was a really big explosion. But I'm not big on explosions. They don't really give an artist an opportunity uh, to show his skill. Because, as I said, if you've seen one explosion, you've seen them all.
Yeah,
Uh,
we've definitely seen them all.
the page tends to get busier when there's dialogue, but it can't get too busy. Uh, every time I look at anything I've written, I find a way to improve it by taking words out.
Well, you've done that since the very beginning. In fact, I remember one momentous moment when we were doing our very first 12 pages of Nexus that we were going to introduce to Milton
Right,
John, the
right.
publishers, to see if they wanted to pick the book up after Steve Sutter bowed out. But that's fine because we killed him later on for bowing out. Um, but what happened? Oh, I remember we had a scene at the Pinnacle with the Colonel and his trophy wife Felice, and you started out the narrative by saying it was the best hotel in the world. You remember we were bringing this up before?
Well, no, but I could run and grab a copy of it. It's very close by and take a look.
Yeah, go ahead while I'm expounding on that. I remember calling you and saying, "Why did you say best?" Because no one ever says best. What they say is the finest hotel in the world. And you said directly, because I remember this very well, you're going through a devo process in writing. You're just saying it the way it
What is
sounds
up with you
the
much?
best. Are you finding a page there? He's looking. So in the meantime, yeah, that's what I remember bringing up. And even back then, you were really big on uh, not only reducing a word count, but getting. And this is what writers say all the time: don't just pick a word, pick the most specific word, and make sure all your words aren't redundant and have the exact meaning they're supposed to have. That way, you can use one or two words that have different meanings, but are kind of piggyback on each other to give it extra punch.
Well,
So it's
I'm not seeing that line. Oh, wait, 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 wait.
so it's the first black and white issue, right?
Yep,
The Pinnacle,
yep,
the finest
yep. I'm
hotel in
looking
the
at it
world, the
right
best
now.
hotel. Yeah, okay. What is it? Read it. What it says.
20 years after fleeing his crimes in Paraguay, Colonel Gonzales y Vega has come to the planet Constantine. It is here that he leads a new life with a new wife and a different name. He dines at the Pinnacle, the best hotel in the world.
Ah, yes, and my memory is belovedly very intact. So yeah, that was that was something I remember asking you about. It's funny because my recollection is so fuzzy about some things, maybe because my brain is full after turning 40. And but those things, and this is what people often talk about. I meet these guys uh, older than us, and they say their long term is perfectly intact. But there's something about that goofy short term that just makes people want to drop off the face of the map there. So yeah, not, you have any actual d- d- uh, s- deliberate recollections of writing that very first issue that you can tell everyone about?
Well, vaguely. I mean, I look at it and I see what I wrote and I remember writing it, but I don't have a vivid memory of putting those specific words down. I know a lot of the words because I've looked at them so often over the years, and so many people have reminded me of them. But when I was doing that, and I don't have to tell you this, I was doing a lot of drugs at the time. You know that. I haven't done any drugs in 20 years. I was worried that I couldn't write without drugs, and I've since learned that I can write without drugs. In fact, I think my writing is getting better, and that's one of the things that keeps me going. And I'm working on more projects right now than I ever have before. But that's the way it was. And all I can say is thank God the drugs didn't really interfere with my writing.
You know, it's funny because when I was in art school, back in Milwaukee School of Arts, 78, 79, um, I did this pretty wacky piece of a crocodile. That was one of the school assignments. And later on, when I moved down to Madison from Waukesha, um, I would bring my portfolio around to different art directors at the time. And one of them looked at what I did in that assignment with the crocodile and said, "Were you high when you did this?" And
I
you
have
can
to
tell
assure
everyone that
our
I've,
viewers, yeah,
you know,
that the dude doesn't even drink.
no, I don't even drink. My preferred beverage is Kool-Aid or root beer, so that should be on your Christmas list for everyone who cares um, most honestly about the physical status and mental well-being of the dude here. Right, Flowhard? Flowhard has her Christmas collar on. Right, Flowhard? Yeah, you do. You're a Christmas blowhard, aren't you? And the camera turns slowly to Mr. Flowhard, who's wagging her tail at the moment.
Oh,
Me and Baron are both really big on blowhards, so we own several, practically an army of them. So yeah, I never for some reason, well, where everyone else that I know of went through a drug thing, a phase in their life, I never had any inclination to want to do that stuff, and I can't really tell you why. I remember talking with somebody when I worked at one of my jobs at Pizza Hut. I said, "Why do you smoke?" And they said, "Well, you need something." I needed something to do with my hands, and I said, "That's yeah." And I and they said, "Well, Steve, that's why you never would think of taking that up, because you always have something to do with your hands. You always have a pencil or brush in your hands." But no vice has ever touched the dude's person here, holy personage. Um, Let me think here. So we went through all those days at Capitol. Um, it's funny because I remember very few days when it was winter out. I remember mostly the sunny days of summer and the beautiful weather back at Madison, the capital of Wisconsin, where the office, Capitol Comics office, was located. And I would go up there. It was a communal thing. I mean, we always went up there, and we had access to things we don't even have access to anymore, which is a central office where people got together and talked and went over things and saw what each other was doing, and it was just a great relationship. And now those things uh, are kind of gone the way of the extinct birds in life.
well,
Um,
when we do an online meeting like this, I do a lot of them because of Chris Brawley, who runs my campaigns. Chris is always setting up Zoom meetings with various people with whom we're working. And that's
oh,
what we do now. We meet electronically on air, and I can see you, you can see me, we can hear each other. So it's immediate. It has that effect of immediacy. It's not the same though. It's not the same of actually meeting in person, but it's close enough to get things done.
well, I've always, my great goal in life that I've never quite achieved yet. It's the Nexus cartoon show, and one of the things I'm going to insist on, in spite of what everyone tells me I can't have, is a central office someplace, preferably a door or two down from where I live, of course. Quite blowhard. And um, I think that's just the way to go. And eventually, I suppose I could compromise and do the electronic thing once we get going. But no, I've got a list of things that I think are vital to getting launching the thing off in the right way, if and when it ever happens. And now, speaking of the show, I had a surprise that you don't know about yet that I wanted to do in front of everyone while we're talking here. And that is, I'm going to be drawing a picture in front of everyone and you. But I want you to pick the subject. I want you to pick your favorite Nexus character so I can draw it up in front of all these fans here.
Clone Zone.
Next on the list would be what?
I knew it. All right, let me think. Let me think. I like Creed Jr.
Creed Jr. Okay. Creed Jr. Okay. Creed Jr. Okay. Well, I sure know what his dad looked like. So
He looks just like Creed.
He looks
It's
just like
just
Creed.
like Creed.
Okay.
You might as well just draw Creed.
All right. Now you remember Creed as being a very popular character. There's two things they always mention when it comes to Nexus, and that is they always mention Creed and they mention the heads,
Right,
right?
right.
You get that stuff when you go to shows?
Uh, well, no, I mean, people come up with Nexus for me to sign all the time, which I'm happy to do. But they bring up a lot of other books too. I think I've signed a lot more Punishers than Nexuses over the years because that was a huge hit back in the day and it was Marvel and everybody loved it. Today, they do not love the Punisher. And why should they? Because Marvel has dragged him through the mud and humiliated him and emasculated him and replaced the skull with a squid or something. And the
Yeah.
creator
All hail
says
Marvel.
that he despises police and military who use the symbol. Well, I feel just the opposite. I'm honored when police and military use the symbol because it stands for justice, and they understand that as well. I've spoken to many police officers and military, and they all love the Punisher.
Small
In
wonder.
fact, yeah, because Marvel destroyed the Punisher, I created a new character called Private American, which came out about 2 years ago. It was a huge hit. You can find it at my store at baroncomics.com. You can find everything at my store, including a bunch of novels. The recent election, I had written a Private American #2, but it was predicated on the fact that things were going to go as they have been going, which was straight into the sewer under the governance of the former ruling party. But now that we have hope in America and everything has changed and there's a huge sea change, uh, I had to throw that out. And now I'm working on a new Private American #2, and I couldn't be more excited. This book is practically writing itself because of the events since the election in November.
Yeah. And so we have um, we have a lot of changes going on right now, and I think the the way you've always written is to reflect the times. I mean, isn't that what every author does for the most part is reflect the times?
Well, maybe many do. I've always ripped stories out of the headlines. Anybody reads my stuff knows that. But fantasy authors don't. I mean, they live in their own heads and come up with wonderful stuff, like Kevin J. Anderson when he's working on fantasy, or J.K. Rowling, or certainly J.R.R. Tolkien. A lot of people say that The Lord of the Rings is a metaphor for World War II, and that may very well be. But all I can remember is reading it and being unable to put it down.
Yeah, and that's echoed by a lot of people. That the Tolkien books are always on people's top 10 list. If I had actually spent my time reading instead of looking at pictures as a kid, I'd probably feel the same way. Now here comes that symbol right now. That we'll see if I can pull this off. It's a bit mathematical, and you know how my brain is with math. It's kind of like non-existent. I think a pea under a microscope would show up quicker than my logical brain. So my head out of the way. My head's in the way. Okay, so we're
Well,
heads out of the way. So this
I'm
is
doing
Creed
it.
doing his morning stretches right here. Okay.
I hate to remind you of this, but didn't Creed have 4 arms?
Yeah, the other two are coming.
All right.
That's why he's a quattro. Again, the math brain is always the last to emerge.
The
So
arms are always the left.
yeah, first you get the two arms done, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah,
work
yeah.
in the other two right here. Thought you caught me there, huh? Nope, not a chance.
Hmm.
Okay, so everyone knows I love drawing hands. So mm, let's see if I can figure this out here. It's such a bizarre uh, process to invent things out of your head, and it just shows you the power of the memory or lack of. But yeah, I mean, I always have to bring out the reference when it comes to hands. And let's see, he's got this kind of thing going on, and let's make this not 100, but 1,000 pounds. I remember when we'd get you down here to sign stuff, and I was always big in showing you some of the Nexus animation. And you remember how easy that was for me to get you to look at that stuff?
I remember.
Yeah, I had the
Anybody
pride.
can anybody can watch that animation too if they search for it.
Yeah, it's all out there. It was all personally financed, and did my best to lose the house. It didn't quite happen, but it came close. You know how it is when you're obsessed with something. So let's see. I'm going to make it your call as to what the other hand is doing. And this is a family show, so
Well, it could be behind his back. He's
oh, that's
hiding
cheating.
something.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let's see. Uh,
Bouquet of roses.
yeah. Okay. Well, when you study animation, even this is kind of like second nature for anyone. Oh, he's got three fingers, not four. Oh, well, too late. Um, you notice that you want to place things when figures are in movement, opposing each other. Um, so therefore, Creed here is going to be doing the opposite move with his other hand here. And remember, I designed these gloves in a certain way, and we're gonna draw through like every proper artist should always do. And here comes weight number two. This is going to be 2,000 pounds,
Ah,
just to keep things, just to keep him on his toes here, which I have him down there. He's on his toes. So how does that look, guys? What do you guys think of that? A true Baron Rude collaboration here.
we
Of
know it's all you, dude. It's all you.
uh, well, I always, all this infighting that people do when they age, like Stan and Jack and stuff, and whomever. We never had that problem. I was always cognizant enough to know who the real creator of Nexus was, and I just kind of basically said I came along for the ride and happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Well, I was lucky to hook up with a unique artist whose work commands attention.
And then later on, once we got going with Capital, they wanted to expand, and there was a local guy named Jeff Butler that we recruited too to do the Badger. He was a very good artist, wasn't he?
Yeah, I still talk to Jeff every now and then. He's teaching at Matsy, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of guys are. I tell you, those who teach. Well, it's funny how many people are still back home where we were. You left, I left. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now. But the official time that I moved was when I went to LA to learn more about art and find new schools that could teach me things that I just didn't know about. So that was an incredible time for everyone when we both made that move. You took a lot longer to move than I did. You wanted to move back to the Corn Palace, right?
No, hell no, I'm in Colorado. You know that.
I know, but where is the Corn Palace anyway? We
Mitchell,
always make
South
jokes about it.
Dakota. Mitchell, South Dakota.
Yeah.
Man, what are you whining about?
So I thought for sure you'd want to go back to the Corn Palace because you always talked about that in Nexus.
Well, I enjoy talking about it, but I don't enjoy going there.
Now that was a true reference to Clone Zone right there because he um remember what he said in Teen Angel Nexus number 9.
Nope.
I wanted the Kremlin and you brought me the Corn Palace.
Let me take a look at that.
So there's how you draw people with forearms here. Good thing we have instant recall at our fingertips at any given time here. So there's Creed exercising, people. I hope you enjoyed that little exercise in exercise. Are you almost there?
No, I gotta get another volume.
Oh, you want
I got
using the
30
original
tree
issues?
flies. I got one.
Nexus number 9. It was probably in the middle of the book or near the end because that's when Nexus blasted Teen Angel.
Okay, hang on a second. I'll take a look.
Yeah, let's
Teen
dig deep
Angel.
right here in Nexus number 9. It's good to have a partner that if your better half doesn't remember it, you've always got your better half. Doing a little cleanup here. So there's Creed exercising right there, and we're going to sign it.
Yeah, here we
A
are.
Baron Root production. Christmas 2024. Boy, it sounds funny to say that. Can I write?
What?
So
All
I
right.
think we've kind of brought everyone. Oh, we need some green in there. Where's my green pencil? Where's a good Christmas green? There we go. There's a good Christmas green. So while you're still looking for that, you haven't
No,
found it
I,
yet,
I,
huh?
I think I got it. I
Uh-huh.
got it.
Okay. Do you see it now?
Well, I'm on the Clone Zone page. So this guy comes into a med vac and says, Doc, I got a terrible tapeworm. I'm wasting away. Certainly, madam. And please accept these Oh, no, no, no. This is pride.
Yeah, but don't incite me, right? Excite me, but don't incite me, something like that,
He's
right?
only here on one page, I think. No, wait. He's here later on. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is it. Whack. They did it to me again. I ordered the Kremlin and they brought me the corn pals. Later.
Eh,
And
as
you
you
know what's
know, when
funny
we,
about that is
yeah,
because the corn palace looks like the Kremlin.
well, obviously that's why you put it in.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap it up for right now, but I know you got things that you want to PR while we're on here. Tell everyone why you should get these great new books that you're doing because you're more prolific than ever right now, and you're having a great
Well,
time in your life.
we got 1 week left for Sherlock Holmes Leviathan. It's on my page, baroncomics.com. Sherlock teams up with Captain Nemo to save the world from a maniac who wants to plunge us into a world war. It's 72 pages long. It snaps and crackles on every page. There are a couple of surprise guests I cannot name because when you see them, your head will explode.
So if that wasn't reason enough, what else is going on? You've been more prolific than I've ever known you to be, and you were always
I
a
know.
fast writer.
Well, we're working on Bronze Star 2 now with Pat Broderick, and it's astonishing because I mentioned this before. Pat is 70 years old, and he's doing the greatest work of his career. It's jaw-droppingly great, and everybody who sees it just can't believe it. They wouldn't believe it if I said the artist was 30. But to have this work come from a guy at this stage in his career, it's just mind-blowing. And the first
Yeah.
one did very well. We expect the second one to do better. We do have a couple of Nexus projects in the works, but I can't, they're way down the pike. I'm not going to name them now.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, I'm working on Private American #2. I'm working on the third uh, tenure novel. They're not all called tenure. The first one is just called tenure, but these are about Braxton Knox, who is the history professor who lost everything when he refused to use the right pronoun. And it's interesting because both Blaine and I have been targeted by cancel pigs. And cancel pigs are people on the left who go out of their way to destroy the lives of anybody with whom they don't agree. It's happened to me, it's happened to Blaine, but it didn't hurt us. We have come back stronger than before, and it's just given us a lot of fodder for our material. I'm working on the 11th biker novel. I recently finished a novel called Seer, which I can't really discuss because talk about a hot topic. But when we are ready to launch, everybody will hear about it. I just want to remind you folks, if you're looking for any of my books, and there's a lot, go to baroncomics.com.
Yeah, and of course, you know what I got going on. I'm doing my own separate Nexus thing, and it's kind of based on the earlier versions we did of Nexus. You know, the flavoring is all from I think back in the original '80s and part of the '90s, and I'm having a good time with that. Once I
I
learn
know
how to
you are.
write, which I'm still doing, but I'm glad you like what I'm doing, and it's just it's a whole new challenge for me. And you've got the challenge of always having to be creative and thinking of something new. So um, it's not a boring life, people. So anyone who wants to know what it's like to be involved in the kind of lifestyle we have, it couldn't get any cooler. And it's always exciting, it's always invigorating, and it's always a challenge. So we're going to say goodbye for right now. Don't forget the 225 sketchbook from the dude coming out in January. Don't forget the link below. Oh, we have a couple questions here for the two of us here. Can we handle that? What do you got there?
So this first one is specifically for Mike, and he's asking, can I somehow purchase your crowdfunding comics? I mean the ones for which the collections have closed now, like Monster Hunt Volume 2.
You know, Monster Hunt is the only one that's not on my store. I have copies. If you want, you know, and I'll correct that. I'll send Monster Hunt to Chris so he can put it on the store. But I do have copies of Monster Hunt, and if you want them, just contact me. I'm on X at Bloody Red Baron. I'm on Facebook, Mike Lay Baron, and the comics and novels of Mike Baron. I'm not hard to find.
Yeah, and neither are either of us. So what's the other question?
This one is for both of you.
Mhm.
This one comes in from Marcin. Sorry if I said your name wrong. He says Alan Moore had Dr. Manhattan build a giant construction of glass on Mars in Watchmen number 4. I had no idea for years that he shamelessly stole that from you.
Nexus Black and White #3 is true.
Yeah, and then he
Well,
commented again and said, I mean the original Nexus issue 3. Have you considered it as a tribute or more of a ripoff? And if you've met Alan Moore.
I met Alan Moore. I went to England, I think in 1983 or 84, and Alan came to the train station to say hello.
Yeah, that's cool. But no, these coincidences happen all the time. I mean, I remember when we had Who Was That Masked Man a couple times, and literally within the same month, another book came out with that same line. So the the funny part about these things coinciding there is just a bizarre thing of happenstance.
One year, Hollywood did two movies about volcanoes, and both the studios did not know about the other studio until they were well into production. It was too late to do anything. Another year, two major studios did movies about Christopher Columbus, and neither studio knew about the other's production until it was too late to stop. So both those years, we got two movies on volcanoes and two movies about Christopher Columbus. Just coincidence.
Yeah, and it sounds like the current state of Marvel Comics right now. Nobody talks to each other. I learned about that 15 years ago. No office talked to the other office 10 feet down. Another thing was the Tombstone books or the movies. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah, Kurt Russell was in one, and then um, Costner was in the other one that
yeah,
came out.
and the Costner movie's pretty bad. But the Kurt Russell one is a classic.
My favorite part about that was, do you know what my favorite scene was in that? It was it was
Val
Val
Kilmer.
Kilmer doing the little twist with the little can that he had in his hands. Was that the same movie,
Yep.
or is that something else?
No,
Yeah, that was. I thought that was. It's
it
really
was
funny
cool.
what people. Yeah, what people remember about. And for me, it always tends to be little personal things that they stand out more than any major part of the movie ever did for me. Is those little moments. So when I would draw your scripts, I would always go for that little moment that that you would always supply me with, like Mesro coming up. He was swimming in a pool, and all of a sudden he sees the shark fin coming up. Do you remember that?
Well, who did it? It turned out to be uh, Tyrone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's
Right.
a little Mesro swimming in the pool, and he goes shark, shark, and he hits it over the head with his fin, his rubber fin, and Flame Leg, as I call him, steps up and said, "What'd you do that for?" And I had him going like this with a little star symbol coming out of his head. What if we don't have any more questions? We're just gonna say adios for right now, and I hope you guys enjoyed this special, very special Christmas 2024 broadcast. And look for the great stuff we're going to be coming out with together and apart. And we're both very excited about our futures. And just so you guys know that once you turn 40, life is not over. In fact, it gets even more exciting because I think we stopped aging at what, 39? Is it?
Huh.
Yeah. So
And
it
you
just
did.
keeps going. I stopped aging. Yeah, I officially put a stop to that at 39. Um, so thanks for joining us, guys. And if you've got any more questions you want to ask the two of us, we have our websites available for you to do that with. And again, any comments that you send our way are very valuable to us. So we appreciate your feedback. And Merry Christmas. And in a couple days after that, Happy New Year and happy birthday to the dude who was born on December 31st, 1956. So take care. Thanks again. We'll say goodbye for right now.
Goodbye, all. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
it was a pleasure. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next year. Bye bye.
All right.